He loved his hockey. It was their thing.
He was so present in his son's life. They did everything together.
He was meant to take care of kids and give them a second chance.
Ricardo Hebe is doing everything he can to be a positive influence in these kids' life. He's stabbed 3 times in the chest and he's left for dead. Is there an old score to settle? Is this something from Ricardo's past?
We have this murderer out on the streets. Everybody was scared.
A lot of the details were just so gruesome.
The final moments of Ricardo Hebe's life must have been horrifically terrifying.
December 2018, Winnipeg, Canada. Ricardo Hebe has a lot to be grateful for this holiday season. He and his fiancée Candice are planning a big wedding in the new year. And he's found success in the real estate business. But growing up in Winnipeg's North End, this happy picture was far from guaranteed.
North End, Winnipeg is a place that has substance abuse issues related to crime. It's a city that has some real struggles.
Ricardo's early years, he had a lot of tumultuous relationships in his life with family or guardians. He kind of had to navigate on his own. We went to the same high school. His energy was so enigmatic, like everybody wanted to be around him. We just met one night and the rest was history.
His parents separated when he was young. They both left Winnipeg. He stayed because he didn't want to leave. So he ended up staying with one of his friends. We talked about his childhood. It was very broken.
On Ricardo's 16th birthday, an act of kindness changes his life.
One of his friends, his mom took him in. She was a single mom raising her own kids, and she was a foster mom as well. She just took him in, supporting him. As long as he went to school, that was the deal. And he kept that deal with her and got good grades. He was actually an honor roll student. He calls her super mom.
After Ricardo graduates from high school in 2002, he is touched by another act of kindness that changes his life.
We met through a mutual friend of ours, Sean. I've been doing home renovations and construction for 15 years now. He's like, oh, would you mind if I worked with you? I'm not going to get paid. I just wouldn't mind, somebody teaching me how to do these things. And I said, yeah, absolutely.
Over the next several years, Ricardo learns Richard's business and eventually becomes his partner.
He was successful in real estate. Like, he could have retired probably by the time he was 45 if he would have kept at it.
Then, in December 2010, when he's 26 years old, a mutual friend introduces him to Candice Walasha.
He was this mean-looking guy, but so friendly and nice. So his laugh and his smile right away. And then we just hit it off there. He said, you're mine. And I said, okay. He ended up signing his name on me that night. And I came home, my mom was like, what the hell is on you? And I was like, oh, God. I was like, I found my love. I'm like, he signed me. So we're stuck together now. I was like, I found my forever. And I did. I really did.
A year and a half later, Candice gives birth to a baby boy.
I can't even explain it. Just seeing his eyes holding Junior, that was his world. Everything was about him. He had to be with him 24/7.
On December 14th, 2014, 2 years after Junior is born, Ricardo asks Candace to marry him.
He was really excited to get married. That was kind of the last little bit to solidify their family as a unit.
But a chance encounter puts those plans on hold.
A couple of friends were doing group homework, and I think when he went there, he looked at these youth and he saw part of himself in these kids.
A group home is an environment where multiple people who are vulnerable live together. And it really hits home that these teenagers are just like him, who need stability, who need guidance.
Ricardo decides that the best way to repay the acts of kindness that turned his life around is to create his own group home for at-risk teens.
He just kind of followed his calling. He was meant to take care of kids and give them a second chance.
Transforming a property he owns into a group home takes several months and becomes Ricardo's sole focus. He even decides to postpone his wedding so he can fully concentrate on his newfound mission.
He signed up with an agency, which then certified him. He was approved, and 3 teenagers were placed in his care.
He gets to do what he loves, and he gets to keep kids off the street. And the kids loved him. He would take them to the gym. He was adamant on them going to school. He did everything with them. He wanted them to do better. They would laugh, they would even call him the dad. They looked up to him. It was like home. We'd have supper there with the kids. Our kid was there all the time.
By the winter of 2018, 4 years after he proposed to Candace, Ricardo is ready to plan their long overdue wedding.
We planned his wedding party. I was supposed to be the best man in his wedding. He wanted to proceed with it and to get married.
As Christmas approaches, Ricardo takes his family out for one of the favorite activities he enjoys sharing with his son. Cheering on the Winnipeg Jets.
He loved his hockey. It was their thing. Every Jets game they'd be watching, screaming. He just wanted him to be... His main thing was hockey. That's what he wanted him to do.
It was him and his son at the Jets game. He had season tickets, so he would always go to all the games and bring his son. He was so present in his son's life. They did everything together. You could just see he's just so happy and laughing.
They don't know that this happy night will be their final moments together as a family. On December 17th, Ricardo agrees to give his former business partner a hand with one of his construction jobs. At lunchtime, he tells Richard he's got to go run an errand.
I remember it vividly. Every time we leave for the night, we're not going to see each other till the next day. He would always do this side fist bump to me. And so the day of, he was saying he has to go home, and he's going to get something to eat, and he'll meet me back at the house. And I'm like, okay, sounds good. And then he did one of those fist bumps. And I remember it was like my brain took a picture of it, because I looked over and I seen his hand, and I remember almost taking a picture of my hand touching his hand. I looked at his hand and I pulled my hand back, and I was thinking in my head, I'm like, I'm going to see you in 20 minutes. I just had this intuition that that was the last time I was going to speak to him.
At 2:30 p.m., a call comes into the Winnipeg police reporting a disturbance at Ricardo Hebe's group home.
Ricardo Hebe was on the phone with a lawyer at the time. So the lawyer hears a commotion, knows that there's something wrong.
The lawyer calls 911, and patrol units are immediately dispatched to Ricardo's group home.
They find Ricardo Hebe on the ground, covered in blood.
Detectives try to decipher a clue that could crack the case.
Somebody is lying. Somebody knows something about that blood stain on the door.
While they grapple with the question of who would want Ricardo Hebe dead.
We have the citizens coming together in uproar, thinking, what is going on in our city?
What did he do wrong? Nothing. He opened the door. He's trying to defend his home and defend the children in his care.
I didn't see real. I lost it because it was like a nightmare.
Winnipeg police responding to the group home run by Ricardo Hebe find him critically injured after being attacked and clinging to life.
You're looking at a chaotic scene. He's stabbed 3 times in the chest. He's left for dead. He's bleeding out. They're going to do whatever they can to save his life. The paramedics take him to the hospital as quickly as possible.
As Ricardo fights for his life, the search for clues about what happened to him immediately gets underway.
The forensic unit attend the crime scene and collect all the blood samples. They're going to collect DNA samples from different surfaces. Maybe the offender got caught in a struggle and has blood on the floor.
Detectives also launch an urgent search for witnesses. They discover that 2 of the 3 teenage residents of the group home were in the house when Ricardo was attacked.
These kids, he said, they were in their rooms at the time when this happened. The investigators have to consider everything and everyone. This attack could have been connected to any one of the 3 boys that live there.
As the investigators interview the teens at the crime scene, they have their colleagues back at the police station check into the residents' backgrounds.
Investigators ask the gang unit and in the drug unit if there's any open investigations involving the group home or the people who live in the group home. But they find the opposite, that Ricardo Hebe is running a really clean ship and he's doing everything he can to be a positive influence in these kids' life. They actually have a lot of respect for him and they speak very highly of him.
The teens also tell the police there's one more resident of the group home who's known to everyone as CH, but they haven't seen him all day.
CH was not there at the time. It's imperative that the investigators find CH and interview him as well.
Detectives get the addresses of CH's school and work and begin trying to track him down. As they do, word comes that this has just become a homicide case.
Ricardo Hebe was pronounced dead at the hospital.
Ricardo's fiancée Candace is home when she gets the call that turns her world upside down.
Hearing the words that he's dead. I didn't see real. I lost it because it was like a nightmare. I couldn't speak. I couldn't think. I couldn't breathe half the time. I would lay there like begging him to come back. He was my everything. Losing him literally destroyed my life.
I'll never forget that phone call because all I could hear was Ricardo's dead. And instantly I dropped the phone. I couldn't breathe. I fell down. I was crying. Thank God my husband was carrying our child because I was completely distraught. It was just heart-wrenching.
As Ricardo's stunned loved ones try to cope with the terrible news, Winnipeg detectives continue looking for reasons and potential suspects.
Why did the suspect do this? Is there an old score to settle? Is this maybe something from Ricardo's way past and somebody has asked this guy to go there and kill him? Who knows? But you can't rule out any of these options.
He didn't have any enemies. He didn't have anybody that had a personal vendetta against him. He never screwed somebody over.
Investigators examining the crime scene make a major discovery that they hope will shed light on what happened.
There's a camera showing the exterior of the residence, so it would show anyone coming up to the door.
Police are able to quickly review the surveillance video, and when they do, they learn the camera was an eyewitness to the murder. They are able to play back Ricardo Hibi's final moments.
The surveillance footage shows a man in a black coat walking up to the group home. There is a brief interaction. You can't hear what's said, but the man in the black coat pulls out a knife, stabs Ricardo 3 times.
The crime was shocking. Here's a guy who is running a group home for vulnerable children. What did he do wrong? Nothing. He opened the door. He's trying to defend his home and defend the children in his care. And then he gets stabbed. The final moments of Ricardo Hibi's life must have been horrifically terrifying.
Despite showing the murder, the footage yields no clues to the identity of Ricardo's killer.
Unfortunately, the images are grainy, they're fuzzy, and they're just not good.
The exterior camera showed the suspect wearing a black jacket with a fur-trimmed hood. The hood was up.
The footage shows that Ricardo's attacker approached from the street and never entered the house.
The 2 kids who were in the house, they're ruled out at this point.
For detectives, it's now more urgent to find the one resident who was not home at the time of the murder, CH.
It's imperative that the investigators find CH and interview him. Maybe he knows something that the other kids didn't know. And also to be able to account for his location at the time the offense happened.
It's not clear where CH was at the time of Ricardo Hibi's death. Police are just trying to piece together if he's connected to all of this.
The day after Ricardo Hibi is stabbed to death, detectives are urgently searching for the one resident of Ricardo's group home who cannot be accounted for, a teen known to his friends as CH.
At this point, the investigators still haven't tracked down CH. The first obvious place to check would be the school and his place of work. It turns out that he didn't attend either of them on that day, which is a little weird because he was expected to be in school and he was scheduled to be at work, but he didn't show up for either. And there's no account of where he is or where he could be. So they cannot rule him out or rule him in any way at this point.
News of Ricardo's murder spreads through Winnipeg, stirring both grief and anger.
This was quite a high-profile murder in Winnipeg. It affected a lot of people. And the question I kept coming back to was, for what? Why did this happen? There's really no clear answer. I thought it was just so brutal because of the fact that Ricardo was quite a pillar in the north end of Winnipeg. It was just such a sad story. I mean, this man dedicated his life to trying to help young men who were in a similar position to him, so it seemed just so tragic that he would die while doing something good for the community. It just felt very cold and brutal.
We have the citizens coming together in uproar, thinking, what is going on in our city? We have this murderer out on the streets. We're all going out in support because we don't want this to die in the media. We want it to be up close and personal with every resident of this city because this is all of our issue. You know, it was my best friend who lost his life, but it could be my neighbors tomorrow. Everybody was scared. And so I think pushing it in the media was the only way that we were going to get any traction with finding this guy.
Two days after Ricardo Hibi's murder, as detectives continue to search for CH, police get an unexpected visitor.
On December 19th, CH arrived at police headquarters and tells the officer at the desk that he understands that homicide investigators want to speak to him. He tells police that he doesn't know who would have had reason to attack Ricardo. He doesn't believe it had anything to do with him. He certainly denies being part of the attack or having any knowledge whatsoever of it. The investigators want to know, where was he at the time of the attack? CH tells the investigators that he was at his girlfriend's house. His alibi is that he spent the whole afternoon with her, and that's why he didn't go to school, and that's why he didn't go to work. He said that he was dealing with some relationship issues, and that's why he hadn't come forward. And he claims that he didn't know anything about the homicide until he had recently heard about it, that police wanted to speak with him. CH says that he was with his girlfriend, Trinity Moore. Police now have to confirm that alibi.
CH gives detectives Trinity's address. They head straight to her house to check his story.
When police arrive at Trinity's address, they see that there's a blood stain on her front door. Trinity denies any knowledge of it, and she says that's the first time that she's seen that blood.
Trinity consents to police taking samples from the blood that's found on her front door.
The blood samples are sent to the police lab for testing as detectives continue their interview with Trinity. They ask if she can confirm CH's alibi, that he was with her on December 17th, the day of the murder.
Trinity told the investigators that CH does come over a lot, and he stays over there, and he spends lots of time with her at her home. However, she says that on the day of the homicide, he was not there.
In fact, Trinity tells the detectives she hasn't seen CH in days.
He's saying that he was there all day. She said, no, he wasn't. So someone's lying. Somebody knows something about that blood stain on the door.
Detectives investigating the stabbing death of Ricardo Hibi believe a teenage resident of Ricardo's group home has lied to them about where he was at the time of the murder.
CH says that he was with his girlfriend, Trinity Moore, but she said that she didn't see CH that day.
With his alibi in doubt, investigators now wait to see if DNA tests on the blood found on Trinity's door can connect CH to the murder. But they also have some follow-up questions for him. This time, CH is easier to locate. They find him standing outside the group home where he lives.
CH tells them that Trinity is mistaken, and he said that sometimes she takes medication and she forgets things, but he's actually angry that she says that he wasn't there, because he is adamant that he was there. His alibi is very shaky, but there is no physical evidence to tie him to the scene. At this point, there is certainly not enough evidence to charge CH with anything.
4 days after Ricardo's murder, just 4 days before Christmas, the DNA test results from the blood stains on Trinity's door come in.
Those bloodstains came back as a match to Ricardo Hibi's DNA.
It is not contaminated with anybody else's DNA. It is Ricardo Hibi's DNA, and it is definitely something that happened after his attack. This is a huge break in the case because now there is a direct link from the crime scene to Trinity's front door. So somebody who killed Ricardo went through that front door and deposited Ricardo's blood on the door.
The test results convince detectives that Trinity knows more than she's told them about how Ricardo's blood got on her door. They rush back to her home to confront her. And that's when her story about the day of the murder changes.
She says that CH was there, that he was actually hiding in the back room. Trinity told the investigators that they have a rocky relationship at this time, and they had a fight. She says her brother, Kane, became aware of the altercation that she had had with CH and was furious. She didn't tell her brother that CH was in the back room, and her brother, Kane, left and he went looking for CH. She actually provided her brother with the address of the group home. And when he came back, he had blood on him, and as he left the blood on the door handle at the front of the house.
She says that he shows up, she sees his hands are bloody, and she sees him in possession of a knife, and she observes there's blood on it.
Was he looking to find CH and thought he killed CH? Or was he just lashing out at somebody? There's a couple of different possibilities here. The investigators show Trinity the images from the security camera from the front of the house where the attack is captured. She actually tells the investigators that her brother Kane has a jacket like that.
Trinity told investigators that she hadn't seen her brother since the day of Ricardo's murder.
She lied to police because she didn't want to get her brother in trouble. She was trying to protect her boyfriend as well.
With Trinity's statement, CH is cleared of any suspicion.
Now the investigation has taken a completely different turn. It looks now like Kane Moore is the number one suspect. Once he was identified as a suspect, the investigators are going to look at his record.
Kane had a history of violence. He had a history of unprovoked attacks. Kane went to Stony Mountain, which is just outside Winnipeg. It's a federal prison. It's for serious and violent offenders.
While he's in the penitentiary, he's involved in another serious incident. He's a suspect in another stabbing inside in the penitentiary.
Kane was facing charges related to the death of another inmate.
Despite the pending charges, investigators learned that in October 2018, 2 months before Ricardo was stabbed to death, Kane Moore was granted parole and released from prison.
He's a very dangerous person, but he was not designated a dangerous offender by the courts.
He wasn't even supposed to be out on the street. In his parole documents, it stated that he is high risk to reoffend, and somehow he was let out.
When I found out, I was furious. How do you allow someone out who killed someone inside? If you can't protect people in there, how are you supposed to protect them out?
He's very volatile and he's got a very dangerous background, so it's urgent to find him as soon as possible.
Winnipeg detectives are on the hunt for 21-year-old Kane Moore, the prime suspect in the murder of Ricardo Hebe.
At this point of the investigation, the investigators have to find Kane Moore. It is imperative that they find Kane Moore.
Kane's sister, Trinity, tells the detectives that she has not seen or heard from him since December 17th, the day of the murder. Investigators begin tracking down other family members, hoping for a lead to his whereabouts.
His family are somewhat cooperative. They say that they haven't seen him in quite some time, but it can only be taken at face value because they could quite easily shelter him. The investigators went to all the known hangouts and the areas where Kane Moore has frequented and is known to frequent. They're not getting the best cooperation in these neighborhoods. Nobody wants to be seen speaking to the investigators. Nobody certainly wants to cooperate with them. And they draw a blank. They're not getting anywhere. Kane Moore's parole has been revoked at this point, so the investigators will get a Canada-wide warrant for Kane Moore. They'd circulate a bulletin with his picture and his description to every officer.
After 2 weeks of an intensive search that began just before Christmas, police still have no sightings of Kane.
Nobody knows where he is. It looks like he's gone to ground and nobody can find him. He's on the run.
It was a brutal holiday season for Ricardo's friends and family. They're dealing with this awful tragedy, but they also have no answers. There are very few details at this point about where the main suspect in this murder is.
It took a huge toll on me, physically, mentally. I wasn't eating, I wasn't sleeping from the stress of it.
That just completely shattered everybody. It's unexplainable. My brain was numb. I just was trying to, soak in the shock.
Another week goes by with no progress in the manhunt. Then, on January 6th, 2019,
cadets that work with the Winnipeg Police Service came across an individual that was just walking on the street, and they were concerned that he was intoxicated.
They approached the individual who provided them with a false name. However, when they detained him for being intoxicated and they searched his pocket, they found identification in the name of Kane Moore with a photograph that matched him.
Once cadets clue in and realize that they have the main suspect in Ricardo Hebe's murder, they call detectives immediately.
The cadets take Kane into custody and bring him to the station.
Kane Moore was arrested wearing a black winter jacket. The man who appeared in the surveillance video taken of Ricardo Hebe's death was also wearing a black jacket.
But when detectives show Kane the images from Ricardo Hibi's security camera, he insists it's not him.
He doesn't give anything up.
Kane Moore clams up, he denies any involvement in the murder, and he asks for a lawyer.
Kane Moore never admits to attacking Ricardo Hibi, and he never admits to killing him.
But when investigators examine the jacket Kane was wearing when he was arrested, they make a critical discovery.
Police found bloodstains inside that jacket. Investigators test the blood that's found in this black jacket, and the DNA matches Ricardo Hibi's DNA. Kane Moore is arrested for the murder of Ricardo Hibi.
There's a lot of inexplicable killings that occur, but in this case, even though there was no clear motive, there is enough evidence to suggest that Mr. Moore was upset with CH.
Kane Moore wanted to get into the house to find CH, and Ricardo blocked him. He was protecting the kids in his house and doing what he was supposed to do. And Kane Moore wanted to get in there and lashed out the way he always does, violently.
Kane Moore is charged with 1 count of second-degree murder. Ricardo Hibi's loved ones are shocked to find out he was killed by a stranger.
Kane Moore, he's never been around us. We never had him at the house. Like, we had no idea who he was.
The news kind of came out that it was just some random guy. I was angry. We'll ever sit down and have a conversation if this guy asked me for forgiveness. I don't think I could do that.
Kane Moore's trial begins in September 2020. Prosecutors are confident they have the evidence to convict him of murder. They call their star witness, Trinity Moore, the accused killer's sister, to the stand and ask her about what she saw the day Ricardo was murdered.
Trinity Moore gave a sworn statement to police that her brother Kane Moore showed up, that she saw he had bloody hands.
Trinity Moore recants her statement when she's called as a witness. She tells a completely different story. When Trinity Moore changed her story, now there's the possibility of an acquittal.
Kane Moore is on trial for the murder of Ricardo Hibi. Prosecutors expect his sister, Trinity, to testify that he came to her home after the murder, covered with blood, and confessed. But her testimony stuns them.
When she gets up on the stand, she completely contradicts what she had told investigators.
She says that her brother was not involved and never came over.
She said that when she spoke to police, she didn't know what she was saying because she was high and drunk at the time.
When Trinity made the 180 turn on her story, it throws a wrench in the prosecution's case.
But even without Trinity's testimony, prosecutors can make their case to the jury solely based on the physical evidence.
That black coat that Kane Moore was arrested wearing wound up being a central piece of evidence.
There was video surveillance and forensic DNA evidence. We played the surveillance videos that show the individual approaching the residence, and we showed the actual stabbing. We also showed Kane Moore leaving the house.
The video surveillance and the forensic DNA evidence links him to that house.
Candace was there every single day. She seemed extremely strong given the circumstances, but when that surveillance video was played in court, she left sobbing, but she was there start to finish. I don't really know how she did it because a lot of the details were just so gruesome.
The jury deliberates for 6 hours. And on September 24th, 2020, reaches its verdict.
He was convicted of second-degree murder.
He's got a life sentence with no chance of parole for 15 years.
For Ricardo's family and friends, the sentence only adds to their pain.
He did not deserve anything less but life in prison with no eligibility for parole. And that's something that is still hurting us because he's still going to be eligible to come out eventually.
It's a really sad irony because Kane Moore is the exact type of young man Ricardo Hebe would have wanted to help. So you can't help but wonder if things could have gone differently. That didn't need to end up like that.
I accepted that there's nothing I could have changed. There's nothing that anybody could have done.
It wasn't even supposed to be for him. This shouldn't even happen. He was taken from me. Not having him around, I am very, very lost.
Despite the pain they live with every day, Ricardo's loved ones try to stay strong and keep Ricardo's memory alive, especially for his son, Junior.
Everybody dealt with it in their own way. I still have a good relationship with his son. I'm godfather to his son. I've made him a promise when he was alive, and I'm just fulfilling that promise to look after his son.
I want people to know that his heart was there. He wanted the best for these kids. It's just, everyone knows his legacy was left. And his smile, and just how genuine he is. And that's why I want to keep going. Our son has love for hockey. So he's an all-star now. Ready, he wants to play the Jets, he says. I said, do it. Your dad would be proud. He would watch you. He's a little hockey star now. But now I'm a hockey mom, so I got this. Did it for him and his dad.
These kids were so innocent. They were Christian kids. They were really made for each other.
The state park ranger goes over the beach and sees what looks to be two people in a sleeping bag. It was immediately clear that they were deceased. It didn't appear a murder-suicide. And absolutely nothing was missing. Who did Jason and Lindsay know? Where have they been? Who could they have ran into? Is there anyone that would want them dead?
He had frozen animals in his apartment. He was definitely kind of living on the fringes.
It was parents' worst nightmare.
That doesn't happen to normal people. That happens in stories and movies.
August 2004, El Dorado, California. Lindsay Cutshall and Jason Allen are beginning one of the most exciting times in their young lives. They're getting married in less than a month and enjoying a beautiful Northern California summer as they count down the days to their wedding.
They were unlike anybody I had ever met, and they were very warm to everyone. There was not a mean bone in their body. Jason was super, super friendly, just a very free spirit, did his own thing, had his own style. And Lindsay had the most peaceful personality I've ever met.
Lindsay grew up in Fresno, Ohio, in a loving family alongside her older sister, Carrie.
What a joy to have that sister for Carrie. She looked just like him, even as a baby. She was just a beautiful child, and she just completed our family.
I'm not sure she looked exactly like me. Once when she was doing a harvest party thing, she dressed up to look like me. At the time I had a mustache, and she penciled in a mustache and wore a suit and tie, and I felt very blessed and honored that she would do that. Very sweet kid.
They went to public school up to a certain grade, and then we homeschooled. Her social life was here at church.
Our church was kind of the center of not only our lives, but our girls as well. We really emphasized being a spiritual family, and that's exactly what we are. When she was a little girl, she told her mother and I that she'd like to be a missionary, and we were really pleased and proud of her for that.
After earning her high school diploma, in 2003, Lindsay is accepted to a Christian college in Bradley, West Virginia, 220 miles from her home in Ohio.
Her older sister went to Appalachian Bible College, and so that's where Lindsay decided to go.
She was really involved in the outdoor life ministry they had there.
The school's outdoor ministry combines nature activities like whitewater rafting with religious instruction.
She really was good at counseling young kids and leading them and showing them Christ.
During her first semester of college, Lindsay has an unexpected, life-changing moment when she meets 26-year-old Jason Allen.
He'd graduated and went back down to be a whitewater rafting guide, and that's when they got together.
Jason is from West Michigan and shares Lindsay's passion for spiritual outreach through the great outdoors.
He came from a great family, and he grew up in a wonderful home.
Jason told his parents when he was just a little guy that he felt called to be a missionary. I believe that God brought them together for that very purpose. These kids were so innocent, you know. They were Christian kids. They were really made for each other.
Just 5 months later, in February 2004, Jason approaches Lindsay's parents about taking his relationship with their daughter to the next level.
Jason came to talk to me while we were sitting in our living room. And then he said, I am so nervous. And so he actually asked for Lindsay's hand in marriage, and I said yes.
And they were just a puzzle piece that fit together.
Lindsay and Jason set a wedding date in September. They planned to spend the summer together working as counselors at a Christian adventure camp in Northern California.
During the day, they would take the kids whitewater rafting, rock climbing, and long hikes and swims that really challenged the kids.
The camp is located in Coloma, California. It's right on the South Fork of the American River. You can literally walk out of your tent and, maybe 200 yards down to the river bank. It's super peaceful and really beautiful.
On the 1st of June, 2004, Lindsay and Jason load their car for the drive from Ohio to California.
The last time we physically saw her, she was a little nervous. And I remember seeing her walk off, and it was kind of like some of these things you look back now on. It's almost like you had an inkling. It's really weird, I don't know. You know, the female intuition type thing.
When they arrived at camp, everyone's new. And I just remember seeing Jason and thinking, he's so tall. And Lindsay was pretty short. And so they were a little bit of a funny couple just because of the height difference.
Every Sunday, Jason and Lindsay would come out of the camp and find a payphone.
She'd call and talk to her mom for a while, and then she'd talk to me.
On Friday, August 13th, as their exhilarating summer begins to wind down, Lindsay and Jason plan one last adventure. They head out for a 2.5-hour road trip to San Francisco.
Everybody had the weekends off. That last week, their plans were to go out to see the Golden Gate Bridge and camp and get away because it was the last weekend and they wanted to spend some alone time together as a couple. Sunday early evening, you would be expected back to camp around 4 or 5 o'clock because that was when we prepped for the week.
That Sunday evening, the couple doesn't return to the camp.
They took work serious. So when they didn't show up, first it was like, this is weird. What's going on? But nobody jumped to any kind of crazy conclusions. They thought, oh, well, maybe they got stuck in traffic or maybe their car broke down because they drove a really old car.
When Lindsay fails to make her weekly call home, her parents grow concerned.
We were nervous when the phone call didn't come because she never missed a Sunday.
When Monday rolled around, the concern was growing because we were thinking, okay, well, if their car did break down, I'm sure they would call us by now. But nobody knew where they were. And that's the moment where you go to that dark place of thinking the worst.
Monday, the camp called and said, do you know where Jason and Lindsay are?
We knew immediately that something was wrong. The next day, we flew out and then the search began.
Investigators discover a window into Jason and Lindsay's final moments.
They both got big smiles on their face, just enjoying a tourist day out in the city, enjoying life.
Gifts from the beach, the pictures, and these writings.
And chase a possible killer who stays just out of their reach.
He was definitely living on the fringes, alternate lifestyle. He was somewhat savvy with weapons.
She had messaged him saying, maybe I should just go turn you in for that 50 grand reward. And why don't you go shoot some more people and try to get away with it?
It's been 3 days since anyone has seen Lindsay Cutshall and Jason Allen. Lindsay's worried parents fly from Ohio to California, where the couple were working as camp counselors.
We went directly to the sheriff's station and talked to the sheriff deputy.
We get missing persons cases all the time, and most of the time it could be anything. It could be something simple.
He said, maybe they went and got eloped and got married. I said, no, they wouldn't have done that. They're excited about this wedding. They're serious about this job. That just wouldn't have happened.
Deputies tagged the license plate of Lindsay's red car as missing in the DMV database. Kathy and Chris next head to the Rock and Water camp, where Lindsay and Jason's fellow counselors, wondering if the couple returned early and ran into some kind of trouble, have already started their own search in the area.
They're all outdoor adventure type people, so they knew the places where they could possibly have fallen and gotten hurt.
We searched night and day.
On Wednesday, August 18th, 5 days after Lindsay and Jason were last seen driving away from the camp, a park ranger is traveling along the coastline in Sonoma County, about 165 miles away.
He came upon a red car. It was off the side in a pullout, but they're facing the wrong direction. So this park ranger, he runs the license plate, and it immediately flagged like, hey, this is a missing persons case out of El Dorado County.
The car is parked along the highway above Fishhead Beach, a remote, picturesque location near the town of Jenner, 80 miles north of San Francisco.
It's just a beautiful place. It becomes steeper and steeper, cliffs, but gorgeous, absolutely gorgeous place.
The park ranger hikes down to the beach in search of the missing couple.
The state park ranger goes over the beach, and sure enough, he sees what looks to be two people in a sleeping bag down there. It was immediately clear that they were deceased.
The ranger alerts the sheriff's department, and deputies rush to the scene.
More deputies arrive, and they secure the scene.
Deputies discover that both young victims were shot once in the head. In backpacks next to the bodies, they find 2 driver's licenses, identifying the victims as Lindsay Cutshall and Jason Allen.
It wasn't immediately clear what exactly happened. There's no weapons here, so it didn't appear a murder-suicide. Absolutely nothing was missing, so it doesn't appear that it was a robbery. There was no sign of any type of sexual assault.
Investigators look for anything that might yield a DNA sample that could be traced to a suspect.
One of the things that was collected was this beer. So we get DNA off that, but we don't know if it's involved or not.
They used metal detectors to look for shell casings. They didn't have that at the scene. The killer collected the shell casings off the beach after the murders. So that's just a cold, calculated murder.
As the investigators continue to process the crime scene, news of the awful discovery quickly makes its way to the camp and Lindsay's parents.
They found their bodies on an isolated beach. What they thought was a safe place was a parents' worst nightmare.
I remember it like it was yesterday. But the owner of the camp, he said, Jason and Lindsay were found, but they're dead. I remember thinking, this isn't true. This can't be true. That can't be my friends. That doesn't happen to normal people. That happens in stories and movies.
Back at the beach, detectives find a disposable camera in Jason's backpack. Hoping there might be photos containing clues to what happened, they send the film out to be developed. Several hours later, the photos come in. What detectives see deepens the mystery of Lindsay and Jason's final moments. Nothing in the pictures indicates that they were in trouble or feared for their lives.
As horrible as it is, how cool. Because there's photos of them You see the San Francisco skyline in the background. They both got big smiles on their face. Just enjoying a tourist day out in the city. Enjoying life.
Detectives soon arrive at the camp to meet with Lindsay's parents and offer what comfort they can.
It was really hard to fathom why in the world anybody would kill them. But some of the greatest detectives in the world from Sonoma County came to us. And we trusted them.
The investigators give Lindsay's parents the photos from the camera they found with Lindsay and Jason, along with notes the couple had written in a guest book at the beach trail entrance.
Gifts from the beach, the pictures, and these writings. There's a lot of gratitude when we see these pictures.
Lindsay wrote in the registry, "The sun is going down in the horizon, and all I see are the beams shining on the cliff face, and I know that God is awesome. I look around and I see his creation all around me."
How precious is that?
With no clues gleaned from the couple's photos and no ballistics evidence recovered from the beach, investigators know they face an uphill battle to determine what led to this double murder.
Early on, it became clear. These were awesome people. Had no enemies, no beef with anyone. There was no one that would want to hurt them.
There was no comforting information as to who did this, why did they do it, what was their motive, because it was so bizarre. They were beautiful people that didn't have enemies. So we were left to latch on to whatever our brains could come up with, and most of that stuff wasn't very good.
Sonoma County detectives investigating the murders of Lindsay Cutshall and Jason Allen can find no immediate explanation for why the couple was shot to death on an isolated beach, and nothing pointing to a suspect.
It's who did it? And you start looking into, okay, who did Jason and Lindsay know? Where have they been? Who could they have ran into? Do they have friends around here? Who could it be? Is there anyone that would want them dead?
Investigators hope to create a timeline of Lindsay and Jason's movements after they left the camp on August 13th, knowing that retracing the couple's steps might lead them to the answers they need.
At the time, tracking people was so more difficult back then than it is now. Jason and Lindsay didn't have cell phones. They had to check ATM, credit cards. Where did they go? Where did they stop?
A charge receipt informs detectives that the couple arrived at their first stop on the morning of Saturday, August 14th.
We know that they were in San Francisco, that they did a little bit of shopping. They used their credit card there and got a couple of small items.
They bought 2 tiny bottles of Tabasco on Fisherman's Wharf.
They were there having fun, tourists in San Francisco.
Detectives contact the store, but the owner doesn't remember Lindsay or Jason and doesn't have any security cameras.
They leave San Francisco, we believe, sometime early on Saturday.
Another charge receipt from later that afternoon shows that after leaving the city, Jason and Lindsay traveled around 60 miles north.
We know that they went to Bodega, which is a small town very near the coast.
We believe they stopped at a surf shop.
Detectives contact the surf shop owner. He tells them he does remember Lindsay and Jason.
By his account, they were inquiring kind of where to stay.
They had asked like where would be a good place for us to, spend the night and do some camping. And they were just, I think, generally steered toward the coast. After that, it's a little blurry, but we know that they ended up the coast on the beach.
As police try to put the pieces of Lindsay and Jason's journey together, word of the murders hits the media.
My husband and I had the news on, and all of a sudden it came on the TV, picture of Lindsay and Jason, and it was terrible, really. Really was very difficult.
A lot of people were troubled by this murder because they felt like it could happen to them. It could happen to their family. It could happen to anybody who's visiting, spending the night out at the coast.
It had a big impact on the community. People were really unnerved and frightened and just kind of generally freaked out that this had happened. Some people bought guns or borrowed guns from neighbors. There was a community meeting. The whole room was sort of pressure-filled. The sheriff's office had no suspects. We had a lot of news coverage following the murders. Ultimately, they got over 1,000 tips and calls.
One in particular catches the investigators' attention. On Saturday, August 21st, a woman calls the Sonoma County Sheriff's Department and urges them to look into a man with a criminal record who frequents the Jenner area.
Sean Gallen, he was a known person. He had fish and game violations.
One of his girlfriends, she came forward and said, hey, he's not right. He's doing weird things.
He's a kind of self-styled survivalist. He killed animals without a license. He used drugs heavily.
Although Sean Gallen only has minor charges on his police record, it's the best potential lead detectives have. They rush to his home in Guerneville, 20 minutes inland from the beach in Jenner.
They questioned him about those murders, and he denied any involvement in the Jenner murders.
He was adamant. Denied it. Wasn't him.
At that time, they searched his apartment. They found guns, ammunition, Kevlar vest, a spear.
We had our thoughts, our suspicions.
There was a hope that there would be some way to link him to the Jenner murders.
Two weeks after the murders of Lindsay Cutshall and Jason Allen, a tip leads police to a possible suspect, Sean Gallen. A search of his home turns up guns and several strange items.
He had frozen animals in his apartment. He was definitely kind of living on the fringes, alternate lifestyle. He was somewhat savvy with weapons, and he was, I would say it's fair to say, a bit antisocial.
But with no ballistics evidence recovered from the murder scene, Sean's guns cannot be connected to the murders, and nothing else found in his apartment ties him to the crime, despite investigators' suspicions. The case is back to square one. Devastating news for Lindsay's parents, who have remained in California seeking answers.
I think we kind of expected an arrest. We were there a couple weeks, and then when we came home, we had their memorial service to get ready for.
On September 4th, 2004, A week before Lindsay and Jason had been scheduled to be married, their friends and family gather at the Cutshall's hometown church.
Lindsay's already picked out her flowers for the wedding, and the florist in town, when she found out what had happened, she made up her bouquet in a vase and brought it over to her memorial service, and it was really special. Very special.
8 weeks after the murders, California authorities, desperate for new leads, offer a $50,000 reward for any information on Lindsay and Jason's deaths. It appears to reignite the case.
We got so many tips on this case to the point where there was a room, binders full, whole wall full of it. And these are hundreds of people coming forward saying they saw them. Whether they did or not, you could never confirm.
The tips range from suggestions that the couple stumbled onto a drug smuggling ring to them being victims of the notorious Zodiac killer. Detectives follow up on every one, but they all come up empty.
It's tough because it could be anything. People lie, people see things differently. You never know what you're getting, but you still have to look into every single one because you never know which one's going to be the tip that has some validity to it.
Weeks, then months, then years go by with no new developments, and yet detectives refuse to file the case away as unsolvable.
You want to work a case involving young kids like Jason and Lindsay, who were still in touch with their parents. You want to bring them some closure, any closure. You want them to have some answers. So it was something that kind of consumes you. Even though it could sometimes be referred to as a cold case, it was never a cold case. There was always a detective assigned to this case.
We probably went out yearly to talk to the detectives, and they always gave us hope. And they always told us we'd find that person.
We really grew to love the detectives and appreciate them, and just saw their passion and their desire to find the killer.
I admired Kathy and Chris so much because they didn't obsess about it. I'm sure at times when they were alone that they wondered, would this ever be solved?
After 5 years, Chris and Kathy Cutshall get a glimmer of hope that they will finally get some answers.
There was a man who had been a fugitive, the main suspect in a 1972 killing on an island near Vancouver or in British Columbia. It was a similar kind of killing, 2 young people on a beach who shot in the head.
After those murders, the suspect, Joseph Burgess, had vanished.
What happened in summer of 2009 was that this man turned up. He got in a shootout with sheriff's deputies in New Mexico and was killed in that shootout, along with the deputy that he shot.
Although the 2 homicides occurred 40 years apart, since Burgess had made his way to the U.S., detectives pursue a possible connection.
They had his DNA, and so we tested that DNA. And it didn't match with what we had.
That was a really frustrating moment for everybody involved who thought that perhaps they had gotten to the bottom of it.
Once again, the case threatens to go cold. Then, on Friday, March 24th, 2017, 13 years after Lindsay and Jason were murdered, a 911 call comes into the Sonoma County Sheriff's Office, reporting a shooting. And it changes everything.
And I remember getting that call and just going, oh my gosh, this is it. This is what we've been waiting for.
March 24th, 2017. The Sonoma County, California Sheriff's Office receives an urgent call about a shooting at the Gallon family home. When detectives arrive, they discover 36-year-old Seamus Gallon has been shot to death. The suspected killer is his brother Sean.
What occurred is Sean was at home. His mom was home. Seamus was home as well. Sean was angry at his brother, Seamus, for whatever reason. I don't think we'll ever truly know. He kept a rifle at the time in his vehicle, and he brought it upstairs and pulled the trigger, let out a volley of shots, hitting Seamus.
The suspect's name has a familiar ring to investigators. Sean Gallon was the first suspect in the murders of Lindsay Cutshall and Jason Allen 13 years earlier. Despite their suspicions, investigators could not find any evidence tying him to those murders. But there's plenty of evidence against him in this case.
There wasn't any good reason for it. And the day that he shot Seamus was just a normal day. Words were exchanged, and that was just all it took. Just an argument. He shot him point blank, and then he fled. They were able to track him down. There was a short chase. He was caught.
In my first interview with Sean, when he had killed Seamus, he confessed. It was clear. He described how he did it. It was a fully functional AR-15 style rifle. And he says he put it in full auto and pulled the trigger. I believe it was probably like 7 shots, the initial volley. The rifle stopped after that initial volley of shots. So he said he cleared it and then aimed at Seamus's neck and executed him right there. Once I got that out of Sean, then it was time to switch gears.
Now, Detective Horstman has the perfect opportunity to confront him about the 13-year-old murder.
So I asked him about the Jenner murders, and he denied it. He said it wasn't him. And I asked him, are you willing to take a polygraph? You know, clear your name. If this isn't you, this is the time. And he agreed to it. I remember when the detective was done with it, he met with me and the other detectives in our unit. He said, "This is your guy." He had no doubt in his mind that Sean was lying, and it was him.
It's a stunning development, but polygraphs are not admissible as evidence in California courts. Sean's DNA does not match what was found at the beach, so the investigators know they need to find concrete evidence to prove his guilt.
We started brainstorming what we were going to do, and with the new crime, we could then write search warrants. One of the search warrants was for Facebook, and we delved into all that information going back years, private messages, group messages.
When detectives examine Sean's social media, they discover a trove of disturbing posts.
Sean Gallon had occult images on social media, posts on Satanism, that kind of thing.
They also uncover a private message with disturbing implications.
One of the private messages that we located was from one of his exes, and she had messaged him, "Maybe I should just go turn you in for that 50 grand reward, and why don't you go shoot some more people and try to get away with it?" And at the time, there was only one case here in Sonoma County that had a 50 grand reward, and that was this case. So that stood out. Like, this girl, he told her, she knows, she's threatening this is our guy.
Detectives immediately track down Sean's ex-girlfriend, but 13 years after the murders, she's a long way from California.
She was now in England. And I said, if we can get to England and talk with her, maybe we can get her on our side and see if she'll help us.
Less than 24 hours later, Detective Horseman is on a transatlantic flight.
We get to England and to the hotel room, and I'm going through my phone, and I see I got a voicemail. I hit play, and it's somebody from the Sonoma County Jail, one of the correctional deputies there, saying, hey, Sean Gallen just passed us a note saying he's ready to confess to 2 murders. It would have taken us too long to get back from London, so I wasn't there for the interview. It was one of those things you can't wait. Somebody's ready to confess. You don't want him to get cold feet. There was something inside him that tormented him, and he knew he had to finally be out with it.
In a small room inside the Sonoma County Sheriff's Office, Sean Gallen begins giving investigators a detailed account of Lindsay and Jason's final moments and what he did to them on Fishhead Beach on August 14th, 2004.
He was looking for wild boar to hunt when he sees these people.
For whatever reason, he didn't like these 2 people camping on the beach, or maybe he thought of it as his beach. I don't know. But what he did say was that he had made a decision that he was going to kill them. And he said that he had to force himself to kill them. He had been hearing voices that were torturing him, that were tormenting him.
He finds sleeping on the beach what ends up being Jason and Lindsay.
Years after Lindsay Cutshall and Jason Allen were shot to death on an isolated California beach, Sean Gallen is finally confessing to the murders.
He said he approached them from the south. He's walking on the soft sand, so they had no idea he was there.
He said that he had shot Jason first, and that Lindsay had woken up, very briefly and made a sound of some sort, and then he had shot her and killed her.
He said that after that, he collected the casings. He claims to have hung around them for a little bit of time, and ultimately he leaves.
These victims never knew or met Sean Gallen. They hadn't done anything to him. They didn't have anything that he wanted. It's just utterly inexplicable. The only explanation that I can offer is that Sean Gallen just enjoys the act of killing. My take on it is that once he realized that he was completely busted for the murder of his brother, he understood that he was done. He was going to prison, probably for life. When he confessed to the murders, we wanted to make sure that it wasn't a false confession. He told them that he had put shell casings from the murder weapon into a soda can and tossed it into some blackberry bushes near what had been Sean Gallen's father's house.
Investigators head to the location, hoping the evidence still exists there.
They found this soda can from more than a decade before that had these shell casings that completely corroborated what he had told them. We also charged him with felon in possession of a firearm, possession of ammunition, charges that would put him in prison for life.
When he was arrested, all these things come flooding back and all these memories. It was a relief that everybody had been waiting for years, but also a shock. It's a really long time to have anyone not know why they died or what they died from. I think the hardest part was that it was a mindless crime, that it didn't have a reason, that it ended 2 people's lives who were phenomenal.
Finally, we knew it would happen. We were happy. We were sorry that another person had to be killed for this, but it was like, well, here it is. It all came together.
Ultimately, Sean did plead guilty to the murders of Jason and Lindsay.
He was sentenced to 3 consecutive life terms plus 94 years on top of that.
He will serve the rest of his life in prison.
I miss the spontaneity that they had, that they were up for anything at any time. Always excited about life.
We were very good friends, and I miss that. She had the best hugs. I miss her smile. She had a great smile, great outlook on life. Both Jason and Lindsay, they could teach me so much.
Knowing how happy they were is comforting, very comforting. And knowing that they fell asleep that night on the beach and they woke up in heaven.
They were happy together and loved each other and loved being together, and God took them home together.